right, Billiken fans, now we welcome on to the podcast a man who was thrice drafted by American professional soccer teams, the St. Louis Ambush, the Kansas City Wizards, and the Nashville Metros. Most importantly, he's the head coach of the Billiken men's soccer program, and he's looking to take the Billikens to heights they have not reached since he played. Kevin Kalish, first of all, thank you for the excitement you brought, not only myself and Peter, but to all of Billiken Nation. Welcome to the Midtown Madness podcast.
Guys, appreciate you taking the time and having me on your show. Should be fun.
You left coaching to spend more time with your family in 2013, but decided to take the SLU job in 2018. Why was this the right time and place for you to jump back into the college coaching life?
Yeah, you know what? I'll be honest. I wasn't necessarily looking to get back into college coaching. I was really content. I was, running St. Louis FC and St. Louis Scott Gallagher at the time. I've been a lifelong St. Louisan, so I've had a number of different, jobs in the coaching, obviously at the university, coaching youth. But most importantly, I'm a St. Louisan. So obviously, when the position opened, it was a kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity, being in my alma mater, and I was fortunate enough, to get the position. But I can't say that it was scripted or I planned for it, but the opportunity kind of a little bit of fell in my lap, and I jumped at it.
Current team, it seems like it's really been a process putting this together, and it's really starting to pay dividends. Obviously, what was your philosophy in putting this team together at a high level?
Yeah, so I think Chris Birch and Kevin Stoll and I kind of really sat down and kind of just talked through a little bit about what makes SLU, right? Kind of if you kind of look and do an analysis or an audit of like the last 2 or 3 decades, and obviously the game has changed, the college game's changed a bit, but kind of when we had our most successful years at SLU, kind of what the identity of the teams looked like and felt like, and also kind of what was realistic based on scholarship, 9.9 scholarships and the academic, profile that you need to be a student athlete at SLU, and kind of came up with a real clear identity, an idea of who we needed to go after and kind of what that looked like. And it's evolved. Obviously, it's never going to be 100% perfect, and you're always going to try to recruit top talent and make it work as best as you see fit. But we had a general idea of what we're looking for, and that's really just great teammates, selfless guys that want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, guys that we could build a culture around and trust. And I think that we started with that premise, just going after the person more so than the player, and it's been a while. Obviously it takes a while to build your roster and accumulate those kind of personalities. But, our staff's done a great job of identifying those guys and then getting them to come to St. Louis.
You had a lot of hands-on, experience with a lot of the players on this team during your tenure at SLSG. How much did you lean on that familiarity when bringing in players? And then how did you balance that with looking for players outside of St. Louis?
Yeah, I think obviously our recruiting philosophy is really starting with the St. Louis and working outwards from there, right? Really kind of looking at the Midwest and expanding outwards, even across the country as a whole. But yeah, when you work with a player, you have a real clear idea of who they are, right, and their personality and their character. So for us, looking at Kip Keller and Chase Neese, John Klein, and a lot of the St. Louis guys that we currently have on our roster, Patrick Schulte, we knew what we were getting. And I think that when you're recruiting, that's what, when you can take away, get the guesswork and knowing what kind of character you're getting in your locker room, I think that's a home run. So, it definitely paid dividends to work with those guys, over the 5 or 6 or 7 years when they're growing up, and you get to know their family as well. And obviously it's a good, they're also comfortable with our philosophy and our identity of what we're trying to create and build as well.
What about the guys from outside St. Louis? How does that come about? And are you kind of looking for the same characteristics, or, I guess there's a little less familiarity. So how does that work?
Right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you have to just do a deeper dive the coaches, but their guidance counselors, their teachers, and just kind of really kind of peel back the onion, as they say, and really kind of understand who the person is. We we have a pretty clear picture when we go watch games of what we're looking for from a soccer perspective. And then from there, it's about understanding the person and making sure that they fit for our culture and what we're doing. So it takes a lot of work. I'll be honest. It's all the hours that our staff has done recruiting has definitely paid off. And look, if we're good coaches because we're good recruiters. I'll be honest. Like, that's the name of the game in this business. You get good players and you're a good coach, and Kevin and Chris are really, in my opinion, the best two recruiters in the country. And they do a great job of building relationships and really kind of, sharing a vision of what we're trying to create.
We have a list. We have our notes here, and we have 4 guys that we list as the kind of the stars of the team. But I really want to start with the back end. Kip Keller has no less than 10 times saved a clear chance on Patrick Schulte this season. How important has he been to keeping this undefeated season going?
Yeah, Kippy's a warrior. I think you kind of see that, right? I think there was a good article in the Post-Dispatch about Kippy and Chase and their back four, but Kippy's a playmaker, right? He's a warrior. He's a guy that just competes as good as any, and just wears his emotions on his sleeve and kind of rises to the occasion. He's our training sessions. And one of the things we looked at it when we first took over to now is how do we continue to raise the competitive level of our training sessions in our environment? Because we think if you kind of get the right personalities and you put them together, like, that's when all the magic happens, right? It's not so much about what we're saying or doing. It's just letting type A personalities and competitors go and compete against each other. And so, yeah, as the team would say, he, along with many others, are they go at it, and it's fun to watch. And the great part about it, and at the same time, they're extremely humble and they're great teammates. That's what I respect the most about the group, is there's a lot of really talented guys, really driven guys, and really competitive guys, but they're even better teammates. And I think for me, that's kind of what makes this group really special.
Patrick Schulte he does not look like a sophomore to me when I watch him play. He's just like, he's got such a fully sound, developed game. But at the same time, he's come up with some huge saves, like over the A10 and NCAA tournament. What can you say about him, just in everything he brings to the team?
Peter, sorry about that. I think my internet connection went a little bit south in the middle.
No, that's all right. You were frozen there for a second. Yeah, no, I was just asking about Schulte, who to me he's the best goalie I've seen, in person at SLU. Doesn't look like a sophomore at all. Just in his soundness, and then his just skill level has come up with some huge saves in the A10 tournament, NCAA tournament. So yeah, what can you tell us about him and how he approaches the game?
Yeah, Patrick's he's the best goalie in the country. So what you're seeing is rare, right? I think it's not common, some of the saves he's making, and he's the things that most people don't notice is like his ability to control his box, and the aerial game, and then obviously his shot stopping is what people mostly notice, and then his feet are phenomenal as well, right? So he's a guy that for me is has everything that a goalkeeper needs to and he'll have a long professional career after this. But what I'm most impressed with Patrick is just his leadership ability, how much he's matured in the last 2.5, 3 years. And this is what I think is very rewarding as a coach, especially when you're coaching in college and you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds is just to watch their development and their maturation. That for me is a big one with Patrick and Kippy, to be honest with you. I just feel like, seeing them come in as freshmen, while they're extremely talented, maybe a little bit unsure, insecure in certain moments, and just different things, and just trying to figure life out. And now being just leading others and influencing the group and just leading the way and being ultra confident. It's really cool to see their progress and development off the field, even more so than on the field.
The big name, the big two, I guess, in the headlines this year have been Simon Betcher and Johnny Klein. With Simon Betcher, he started at Holy Cross as a freshman, third team all conference. To see his development since arriving at SLU has been nothing short of unbelievable. What do you attribute that development to? And is that something, you hear about these transfers, the big one is Dipsy, right? Back in the day. The guy, he's over at Harris Stowe, and I think, was it Donegan found him or Warming? Yeah, Donegan finds him at Harris Stowe, and he comes over and lights up the NCAA. How do you just like find that talent in a transfer? I don't know. It's crazy. From a lower level.
Yeah, I think a little bit different from back then, right? Now the transfer portal is something that obviously that everybody's fairly familiar with, but so there's really no secrets anymore in the transfer world, right? Back in the day, you could get a transfer and nobody even knows about it until he's on your roster and you start the season, right? And now, once anyone wants to transfer, every name populates on the portal, and so you're pretty well aware. So once his name hit the portal, I knew Simon. Obviously, he committed pretty early in the recruitment process to Holy Cross, which I think a lot of people were a little bit taken aback by, because he was a really high level talent. And nothing, I have a lot of respect for Holy Cross's program, but most people projected him to maybe go to a higher level program at that time. And Simon, his uncle Bill is a good friend of mine. So we carpooled together when we played in the ambush. So we always would meet at in the parking lot right off of First Capital, and the what's the Bass Pro Shop parking lot, and then we would drive together down to Concord, and he would just tell me stories of his long illustrious indoor career, and I'd listen in as a rookie, and Bill and I has since stayed in touch, and so I knew the family well. His parents grew up in North County. His grandparents still live in North County, so I felt like there was a good opportunity for us to really kind of present St. Louis and what we could do for him, right? And I knew that he had family here, so if we could make sure that he understood how we could kind of build a team around him a little bit from an attacking perspective, and that we could give him what he needs to reach his personal goals, it could be a good fit. And he's really grown a lot. Again, in his game, I think Kevin Stoll manages kind of what we call our IDP, our individual development plans and stuff within each, and he's worked a lot with Simon, and I think the environment as a whole just helps Simon just continue to try to reach his higher level as well.
Yeah, my son is named Simon. He's 5 years old. He just started playing soccer this fall, and it just blows his mind that there's another Simon, and he happens to be a prolific goal scorer.
There you go. Perfect.
So here's somebody who's a little more homegrown, John Klein. Not necessarily St. Louis, he's from Columbia, but somebody who's come up in the program. And I'm just wondering about his evolution into this, like the ultimate setup man on the team, creating for his teammates, both off of set pieces and in play. How has his development come along? I mean, it's just been, for us, crazy to watch. I don't think we saw coming into this season a guy who would lead the nation in assists.
Yeah, it's funny. Johnny's always been probably the most intelligent guy on the team from a soccer IQ perspective. He is obviously he's a coach's son, right? And so you can tell, like when you coach him, he's playing 3 or 4 steps ahead all the time. And so, when we first recruited, when I took the job in January of, it's actually February is my first recruiting trip in 2018. Johnny was still available, to my surprise. And I remember watching him. I flew out to Portland or an event when he was playing for Portland, and then they were playing him as a holding midfielder, if you can kind of envision that, right? So he was playing as a pivot or a 6, right? So he was the guy to get the ball for the center backs and just control the game. And I remember thinking to myself, man, he's doing a good job of that. But gosh, I've watched him play higher up the field in St. Louis, and I think he could even do a better job, right? So he was my first target, was saying, okay, we got to secure him and Billiken Blue. And we were able to do so, fortunately. And then each year he's just gotten better. I mean, look, he came in as a freshman and scored 9 goals. I think, sometimes as a sophomore, you have those expectations you put on yourself. And then when it doesn't go exactly the way you plan, it compounds on itself. I think that happened a little bit. And I think, having Simon and Johnny together, I think both allowed each one of them to kind of bring out the best. No team can concentrate on one, and the magic kind of slowly kind of started to happen more and more and more as they played more together. And I think it's kind of like the perfect storm. I think it's just those two, to me, we call them shake and bake or whatever. They just do things together that you love to see. in a tandem. And it's special, right? It's not normal.
You brought in 4 transfers that have been super integral to this team's success, namely AJ Palazzolo, Alex Sterenberg, Chandler Vaughn, and Kevin Kamodi. Talk to me about bringing in these pieces to complement the kind of main set of guys we just covered.
Yeah, so each one of those guys kind of were a little bit different scenarios, right? We felt like we needed a really good left back. After Andre Rivers Hardware left in 18, which we thought was a really, really good left back for us. We didn't have one in 19. Patrick Wilkins had filled that role for us, but he's not a traditional left back. So left backs are really hard to find. Guys that can actually defend well, get forward, or left-footed. So Chris Birch has a good relationship with the Pittsburgh staff, and so we knew he was kind of going on the portal. And I remember Chandler when I worked with Josh Sargent when I was at St. Louis Scott Gallagher. Chandler was with Josh in residency down in Florida with the national team. So I remember watching him there. So I knew what kind of level of talent Chandler had. Like in any scenario, I think he fell a little bit out of favor in Pittsburgh, just to maybe got beat out for a spot and just needed a new environment. So, we were really fortunate that we knew what we were getting there. So we were really, really excited to get Chandler on board. Kevin and Alex were just 2 guys that we've watched on. We knew that when they hit the portal, we watched a lot of video on them. We looked at their analytics, and they were much more of a specific need for our team. Alex is a guy that's we noticed won a lot of like 50-50 balls, won a lot. He was good in the air, was really good defensively, really good two-way player, played in the Final Four with Michigan State, had some experience, would give us some depth on the right side. And then Kevin's a guy that can stretch the game a bit. Really good on restart service is one thing we wanted to target because of set pieces and restarts. So those guys were actually really specific needs we felt we needed to complement the team. And then AJ fell on our lap. I'll be honest. It had nothing to do with any of our recruiting ability. It was just luck and a little bit of environment situation with COVID. And then obviously our prior relationship with him and his family, just from coaching him as a youth player. And we just timing kind of all synced up and it worked out.
What kind of balance you acknowledged earlier that the transfer portal kind of changes everything, but what kind of balance are you looking to strike between transfers and, high school prep players?
Yeah, that's a tough one these days because you can almost spend all your time on the portal if you really wanted to. I don't necessarily think that's a great strategy to building a culture and building a team. I think you need guys who understand who we are and what we're about. And I think, there's certain guys we had in our recruiting class last year that are really good talents that haven't seen the field yet, that are redshirting or that are just maybe waiting behind a guy and I give, a lot of the top programs now, they have guys in the waiting in the wings to take, and that's how you want to try to build that competitive sustainability where you don't have these major swings in results if you can just keep the levels where it's at. But you need to kind of build a talent base of depth that can withstand graduations or guys going pro and whatnot. So, I think the transfer portal for me is used for more in small, like individual needs. Like if I look at like next year's team, let's say we lose a guy or 2 to go pro. And we have a hole we need to fill. I don't think a freshman can do it. I'll look at the portal to try to fill that hole. But, I'll always kind of go with the guys that are inside the program, that have kind of trained with us for a period of time, that know who we are and what we're about, and kind of develop from within. I just think that's the way we prefer to go, but we'll definitely use the portal for more short-term needs.
I remember, so Stu wrote an article in the preseason about the depth of this team and about how it was a big deal to you to have guys like 2 full squads who could scrimmage each other. So you clearly do have a lot of guys waiting in the wings. How has the COVID year of like extra eligibility impacted how you kind of keep those guys happy? Because I guess now there's a lot more question marks about like how long is a guy actually going to be here instead of the natural attrition from, graduating seniors.
Yeah, great question. And I think that goes back to getting the right people on the bus and in your culture, right? If you got the right you got the right people that are selfless and that are there for the right reasons and that can put their ego aside a bit and understand, like, look, this is the competition. If I can win the spot, I win the spot. If I can't, I'm going to be a great teammate. And look, it's not easy. We've had a lot of conversations with individual players where it's hard. I mean, it's really hard when they're all competitive. They all want to play. There's only 11 spots on the field and we got, 31 guys on the team. But they're great guys. They're great guys and they're great humans and they get it. They understand, like, as long as they felt like they've gotten a fair shake, and then that we're honest with them, I think they can not necessarily accept it, but they can continue to just persevere through the hard times, because I think that adversity will make them stronger. And then look, there's times where, even like we'll always have individual conversations with players at the end of the seasons and say, look, like, here's an example. Stefan Stojanovic is a really good player, right? He scores 9 goals for Georgetown this year. For us, he was probably our first quote unquote national team recruit, right? But Stoy was in a difficult spot because Simon and Johnny were in the same position as well. And so, while we were sharing minutes and this and that, he says, I want to play more minutes. And I said, I get it, but it's what comes first, the chicken or the egg, performance, or, so, we had a really honest and good conversation. And we said, look, if you want to try to find a spot where you can actually play more, I get it. I will always do what's best for the individual. I mean, that's what our jobs are as mentors here. And I think, it has to be a win-win for both, right? And so Stoy and I had a good conversation. We still stay in touch. He's having a great year. We're so happy for him. But he needed to maybe move in order to reach his individual goals for the next level, because he was maybe going to be a third forward behind Johnny and Simon. So those situations for me, I think you're always going to have to look at and just do what's right for the individual and also what's also right for the program.
You talked a little bit about, we talked about balancing the age in the transfer portal with the freshmen that are coming in. I have been so incredibly impressed by two of the freshmen. And I think you definitely need these youthful contributions going into postseason. You saw with the Blues in the NHL, like, you had like Sundqvist and all those guys step up and they win the cup. Mason Leith and Isaiah Parker. And I want to single out Isaiah Parker because I've had the most fun watching this kid work over defenders constantly on the wing. Just incredible. I compare him to having the quickness of like a Cristo and like the going downhill and then like the ball control of like a Sweeten or a Graydon. I don't know if I'm an idiot. I could be an idiot. But that's how I compare it. But how important have these guys been to this team, especially Isaiah Parker attacking on the wing, which clearly you guys love to do?
Yeah, without those two, the whole thing doesn't work. I'll be honest, without good wing play, right? And Seth and Alex and, all the guys that have kind of contributed in that role over the last year. But, if you kind of looked at 2019, even a little bit of even 2018, when we look at like analytics and stuff, we say, okay, we're getting so many box entries. We're creating a lot of our chance creations where it needs to be. Like, there's a lot of certain things where you look at, we're like, why aren't the goals coming or whatever the case. One of the things we saw was when teams sit in low blocks against us, especially in conference, they were doing that a lot. You need wingers that can get around the corner, that can unlock it, that can beat guys 1v1. So that's what you need, right? And if you don't have it, you're limited. It's it's like a basketball team not having any 3-point shooters. You can set up a defense that can keep them from being at their best. So for us, those guys really completed the entire team for what we needed for this team to reach another level. Isaiah's one of a kind in terms of his unique ability to glide by guys and beat players. It's definitely fun to watch. And like, what even better is Isaiah's humbleness and personality. I mean, he was a big time wrestler in Chicago, so you can imagine. He's a guy that we've looked at and said, oh my gosh, look how good he is going forward. But he's also the same guy to track back, to win a tackle, back press and do all these things that we value inside the program. And that's hard to find these days, to find really talented attackers that also value rolling up their sleeves and doing the dirty work.
Did anybody get on Mason Leith about his hair though? That's
We
the important question.
We love Mason for who Mason is, right? He's a unique bird, but we love him. We love him.
Yeah, I believe a guy I talked to who listens to the show, I believe he said he oozes swagger. I believe that was that just like there's something about having that hair and I don't know, he's just insane. But yeah, there's a big game. Well, it'll be tomorrow night when we drop it. You guys got Washington. Some may say we're underseeded, and I would agree with that, but you play who's in front of you, and you get Washington, you have to go out to Seattle. I think the first question Peter and I both had is, how's the weather, and how do you think the weather and the field out there will like affect the team, and how do you plan for that?
Yeah, we walked the field today, and obviously those who've been to Seattle, it's wet and rainy, and the field's obviously been in better condition than it currently is. It'll be very muddy by 15, 20 minutes into the game. I mean, we just looking at the field the way it is, right? So the game's gonna play different than a game at Herman, and that's fine. I mean, we don't mind that. That's why this team is who they are. They kind of just roll up their sleeves and accept what's in front of them and figure out a way to win the game. And so it definitely won't be a traditional game that maybe you've watched throughout the year, just because of obviously the conditions, but it still be a great game. Two real competitive teams, a lot of quality players on the field, two good coaches. So yeah, I'm excited to go compete.
In terms of just a pure matchup, what can SLU fans expect from this? Keeping in mind that a lot of our audience is basketball centric and really following soccer lately, just because everybody's doing so well. But what can we expect from the head-to-head here?
Yeah, it'd be a high tempo game. There'll be a good crowd. So it'll definitely, be a game where, I think restarts will come into play. Right. So I think that'll be a big part of the match, and there'll be a lot of aerial duels and I'm trying to articulate it in a way for the novice to understand, but it'll be a dogfight. Right. It's not, if you'll watch like Travis's team play a lot, right? Those guys in the paint, I mean, they're you don't go in the paint unscathed, right? So I think I venture to guess this game will play somewhat similar, and that there'll be a lot of tackles, a lot of aerial duels, and a lot of high tempo attacks. I would say should be a good game.
A lot of talk. Oh, sorry, Pete.
No, go for it.
A lot of talk around Washington has been Dylan Tevez. 2 hat tricks in the last 2 games. Small but fast and skilled. Are you the type of coach that likes to plan your game in terms of stopping a star player, or are you more let's play our game and let things work out the way they will?
Yeah, I think obviously you have to pay attention to the opposition's strengths and their individual players. But look, at this stage, everybody's good, right? Every team that we, and then in college soccer in general, there's just a lot of parity, right? So every team will have a player or two, and Dylan's a fantastic player. They got a lot of really good players all across their, their back line and their midfield and whatnot. But, our guys are, we're just going to play. We're not going to necessarily spend a ton of time, game planning from that perspective in one individual. At this stage, it's about competing and making plays. And I think you're hopefully, we'll make one more than they do tomorrow night or Saturday night.
So Washington scores a lot off of set pieces. How do you, in a game that is going to be a little sloppier in terms of field conditions, what do you do to kind of cut down on fouls and potential fouls and setting them up for set pieces in your zone, to kind of give them fewer opportunities?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I don't know that. That's a tough one. You're right. I mean, you got to compete. You got to play the game, and I don't know if there's any one strategy to limit restarts. I think it's just part of the game, right? And I don't think we're going to do anything different to try to limit their restarts. I think, we're going to just, again, play our game, and we know that restarts are a part of it, and we'll defend them. And obviously we'll get our handful that we'll get to attack out of them. And two very good restart teams. So it's going to be about who can execute really on both sides of the ball.
Coach, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and this has been an incredible run to watch. I've been, I think Pete and I have both been following Billiken basketball forever, and I know I've been following Billiken soccer for as long as I can remember. And this has just been one of the most fun times we've had. I mean, it's been even more fun to cover it too, because I mean, like I feel like the Dayton fans covering Dayton basketball with when Obi Toppin was there. So I can't thank you enough for A, coming on, and B, bringing us so much excitement and joy this season. It really has the big game feel anytime I'm heading down to Herman or cranking up ESPN Plus and watching on the road. So thank you again for joining us. And Pete, did you have one more question about kind of college soccer in general?
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually was curious. You mentioned earlier, the number of scholarships that you've got relative to roster size, and we had Bill McDermott on, back in the spring, mostly talking about the women's team at the time, and we were talking about things in college soccer that maybe we would see changing moving forward, to kind of make it more of a platform to the pros for American players. Things like extending the season, lengthening it out over both semesters. I don't know if there's any other kind of, do you think that is something that would happen, or are there any other, structural changes in the game that you could probably see happening moving forward?
I hope so. Right. I think it'd be great for the game to be able to play a split season. I think it'd be good for the players. The student athletes would enjoy it. And I do know there's, maybe some, I'm not exactly sure with the roadblocks from an administrative level, or, sounds like the Power Five have a lot of say in what goes on in athletics. But I think college athletics, I think you're going to see a major transformation and change even in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm not sure we all know what that's going to look like on the back end of all this, but I think there'll always be a really good place for college soccer in the soccer pyramid in my mind. I just think there's so many players that one, value education, and two, need the college years to grow and mature and develop as a man. Right. I think you see so many younger players maybe making the jump to try to go professional early, and some can do it. But I think a lot need those extra years of just maturation. And I think, if you look at college soccer, you look at Canada, for instance, they have like 7 starters on the national team. We're from college just recently for a qualifier. I mean, you look at the number, even within our current national team, there's a lot of college soccer players. And so I think, I think it's just too easy to say college is as outdated. I think college still can play a major part in developing professionals, and maybe like developers, or maybe just in general, but I think it's definitely here to stay. And I think there's a lot of tremendous coaches in college soccer that do a great job.
So last question for me. The men's basketball team moved their start time of their game on Saturday to more or less accommodate your game, so people could hang around and watch it in the arena afterwards. Were you involved in that at all? Did you kind of get menaged?
No, that's Travis, man. I got to give Travis a ton of credit. He's a great teammate. And like, that's what our culture is kind of about at SLU. It's like, man, there's just so much support from program to program, and so many good coaches, across all the sports that you love to pick their brains from and just watch them do their work. But yeah, it was cool that I saw him in the jersey today, man. He's the best. He's the best. So yeah, I do want to thank him. And I'll send him, I haven't had a chance to send him a note, but I will. But yeah, pretty cool. It's special times at SLU right now, and a lot of great things going on. So, we're excited to be a Billiken. We're excited to play on Saturday night, and go Bills.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Coach. I'll turn it to Zac for the outro. That's
how I sign off the podcast, Coach. You can't sign off.
All right, Zac. I've listened to it a few times, so that's what I kind of stole your spotlight. I apologize.
I appreciate that. No, thank you again for joining us, and send our best to the guys, and let them know that we're pulling for them, and we're ready for Saturday. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, we're super excited. Thanks again, Coach.
All right, guys. We'll see you. Take
Okay.
All
care.
right, go Bills.
All right.
Go Bills.